Hey everybody, welcome to episode 64 of Making It. I'm Bob Clagett, here with Jimmy Diresta.
Hello everybody.
And David Picciuto.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy.
How you guys doing?
Very good.
I'm
Productive
good.
week.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm good. I had a good Snapchat this week if anybody was watching. Opened up the house this weekend and built a big giant flower pot. It was fun. Anybody watching me on Snapchat?
I don't watch Snapchat. I don't know.
Say, I don't watch Snapchat. I'm an adult. You could say that.
I mean, I'm not 14, so...
I saw that in was it your video or David Welder's video where I'm not on Twitter, I'm an adult.
Yeah, that's my friend Bobby from Kentucky. Yeah, we were just having a laugh about just being stupid.
You know, the only time I've ever pulled out Snapchat is in an airport. And I'm sitting there with nothing else to do, and I've gone, oh, yeah, I should check and see if Jimmy's done something on Snapchat. And those are the only times I've ever watched him.
That's funny.
Yeah, lately I've been playing around a little bit with it. I'm trying to build a Snapchat audience, so I've been playing around with it more often. So if anybody's listening, they want to find me, it's my name.
So this is the first week of spring, and you made a flower pot?
Yeah, one of my clients I've done a few things for, a restaurant in the neighborhood. I made a 200-inch long flower pot.
Sweet.
And I didn't put up an Instagram picture of it yet, but I will do it for Friday. It's it came out pretty good. He wanted like a flower pot / bench. So I made it. I did not make a video of it because I just assumed it would be a boring build. And in the process of halfway through it, I came up with like 20 tricks. I wish I would have videotaped it, but...
Well, now we're going to get a bunch of emails.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
we got enough comments last week about you making signs that you should learn.
Yeah, I'm going to make flower pots
film
from now
everything.
on.
It's funny. I got comments on my videos, and I saw Bob got comments on his videos saying, please tell Jimmy to film the sign.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
I got a couple that people said, please film the sign. Oh, the one, you know, it's so funny. I didn't even know what they meant, but now I understand what they meant. The sign that I didn't film, that I started last night.
Yep.
Oh, Jimmy.
You didn't do it?
Oh,
man.
No.
I didn't. Well, I'm only in the first phase, which is CNC. I can go back and reshoot that. So maybe I will film it.
Yes.
Because it is different. It's basically the Tanqueray sign that if anybody's ever seen my Tanqueray sign I made about 2 years ago, it's exactly that, but done with some different materials.
Sweet.
So, yeah. I now everyone keeps saying film the sign. I didn't know what they meant. Now I realize it's that sign.
Film the sign.
All right. I'll film it. By Friday, they'll be partially done.
Nice.
I'm sorry.
I've turned my channel into a pen turning channel. Since last Friday, I've released 3 pen turning videos. One was a tutorial on how to turn your first pen, and then the next one was I tried to see how fast I could turn a pen, and I turned one in 18 minutes, and then I kind of challenged anybody who wanted to do that, send me their video. And I had one guy turn a pen in 7 minutes.
What?
Yeah, which is crazy. And then
Did he start with a pen?
He started with a pen.
Check this out. 10 seconds.
And then just a couple minutes ago, I released a 3rd pen turning video. I broke a dead branch off a tree, and turned that into a mechanical pencil, which is the same technique as turning a pen.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I also started making a handicap ramp for my dog. He's getting old. He has trouble going down the stairs to get outside, which is only like 3 or 4 stairs. So it's a real simple project. And that should be out by the time this comes out.
Nice.
It's cute.
You should make a really long, skinny skateboard for him to ride down the ramp. A wiener dog shaped skateboard.
Yes. A longboard.
Yeah.
Actually,
awesome.
Considering we're brainstorming today, it would be fun if like you made like a little thing that's counterweighted and he'll step on it. And with his weight, it'll slowly go down just enough. And then when he gets off, it'll shoot back up at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, he's not having that.
All right.
Well, you could give him like a little ski lift action to get back up the ramp. That'd be awesome.
That would be great.
But you'd have to jump on it while it was moving.
Well, he wears like that. He doesn't, when we take him for walks, he doesn't have a collar. It's the body harness, and it has a little hook on the back. And so if he just positions himself just right, that ski lift will just hook him and bring him back up into the house.
And then keep him on the machine. It'll just keep going around and around.
Yeah, round and around all day long. Maybe this isn't a good idea.
Maybe not.
All right, next week we'll solve this problem.
All right.
Well, for me, I finished up my Lego table that I talked about last week. And it turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So that video will be out by the time this show goes out. And my wife took all of our kids to Florida last week because it was their spring break. And kind of last minute, she decided to go visit some family. So they went down there. So I had several days uninterrupted, in the shop, in the house, just working. And it's funny, like, that sounds so like, yes, nobody's going to bother me. I can just work and get tons done. And then about, halfway through the third day, I was like, I don't really want to work anymore.
I miss everybody.
And I've been working until like 2:00 in the morning for 3 days straight, and I want to go to bed. And it's funny though, because I kind of envisioned that I would be super productive, and I was productive, but it just was different than I would have thought. Maybe 10 years ago, I would have stayed up all night and gotten tons and tons of stuff done, but just, I don't know. I'm old, I guess.
No, it's funny. I find like hours or 2 and 3 hours at a time where it's like I'm completely left alone, and like I feel like that's a vacation. And I just like I'll take these next 3 hours. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and and I build like something from start to finish in those 3 hours. I feel like I've totally like escaped from reality.
That's kind of what I was expecting. I was looking forward to having that big block of time, and I made a list at the beginning of it and said, like, what am I going to try to accomplish, over these days? And just because I didn't want it to get away from me, right? I didn't want to like waste the time. And I had a list, but then at the end of every day, I was just kind of like, what did I do with, I got some stuff done, but not as much. And I don't know if that's a condition of me just having too much to do and not feeling productive, or if I was just, I don't know. It was weird, but anyway, I did get a lot done. I started on the next project, which is going to be a quiz game thing for my kids. So basically, they each have a little box with an arcade button on the top. And so I can ask them questions, or we could play trivia or whatever, and they can hit the button and when they want to answer, and whoever hits the button first, theirs lights up. So if they all hit it at the same time, it only lights up the first one. And then I have another box that they're all connected to that has an Arduino in it that's driving this whole thing. And it's got a reset button on it. So I can reset all the lights, so we could do like spelling bees or...
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a very simple project, but I think it'll be a fun thing to have around the house.
That's cool. It's like Jeopardy, where like if you don't chime in time, you get locked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So that'll be fun. It'll be fun to see if they like actually want to use it in that way, because they compete for everything. So it seems to me that this would be a good way for them to compete, but have a really clear winner. Like there's only one light that can turn on. So
since we're brainstorming today, would it be interesting to have like the numbers right in front of their little podium that they could actually, dollar amounts that they win, and then you have to pay them at the end of the game as the dad?
No, that's a horrible idea.
Only put 2 0 slots. That's it. So the most they can win is $99.
Just put the symbol for cents right at the end of it, so they can never get more. No, there actually are a bunch of other. This isn't an original idea by me or anything. There are some other ones that are a lot more complicated that have scoring, and team scoring. Like there's a bunch of different ways to do that stuff, and they'll have like LCD screens on them that will record the scores. And I think a lot of people use that for trivia nights. Like bars have a trivia night, things like that. And so people have made little kind of portable systems to do that same type of thing. But this one, it was like only worth going so far with it. It's just for the kids to play around with. So, but yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Did I say what I was doing? I don't remember. I said I made a flower pot.
Yep.
But then me and Dave have been working on the kindergarten stuff, which we're going to install some of it on Thursday. So I'm just trying to get some stuff ready for Thursday. So I'm a little behind in my videos, but I guess I have a sign video coming up.
Yes, you do.
You better.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. And I still have my Witchblade 3. I haven't started yet. It's been on my list every week of things to start. But I just have so much work, and then we opened the house up, so I spent the whole weekend at the house. So I've been a little behind on my videos, but
that Witchblade 3 is becoming your arcade cabinet.
I know. Well, I know. But I gotta have build videos soon, because me and Dave put up that ice pick video on my channel, and I got like the most dislikes I've gotten in a long time, which is like somewhere around 500 or 600. But I got like several thousand likes, so it's not that bad. But when that little number increases, that's like the people getting mad that I haven't put up a build video soon. But I will. I'm definitely going to put up a build video soon.
You do what you want to do.
No,
yeah, that number is, yeah, it has nothing behind it that you can like clearly understand. So
I know. Oh, you guys will be happy I turned off my my messages. So now I only have like 100 messages a day instead of 600 messages a day. They do go to my Gmail account, which occasionally I open up and look at. So
see, that's not any better.
No, but it's not like not in between like client talk. So that's a good thing. You know, all go one way and client talk all goes the other way. So.
What we're talking about here is that Jimmy has had the email notifications for comments turned on for his YouTube channel. So every time somebody comments on any of his videos, he was getting an email, which is part of why he had 47,000 unread emails at one point.
I get on an average, I get about 500 comments a day on that many videos. And so it adds up. And then, like I said, important emails are like filtered through all YouTube comments. So it's a pain in the rear end to try and find the important stuff. I've sorted that out.
I think every time we've all hung out together, we've all looked at Jimmy's phone just to see what that badge number is.
Yeah. Is it bigger? Has it broken his phone yet? Because it's about to.
I'm opening my phone.
Here we go.
All right. Somebody want to read the number?
Oh my goodness. 73,449 unread messages.
Yep.
Throw your phone out the window. Just start over.
Start over.
But no, this is
insane.
So this is, now look, you can see the breakdown here. You see Gmail? Gmail is like the most.
70,000.
And then my regular email, which is that one there. 164 emails today.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's still a lot.
It is.
Yeah. Well, I got notifications for a couple things still, like Twitter and stuff. So. I'll turn
off notification emails on everything.
I'm coming over, Jimmy. We're going to fix this.
And that's just two. Did you guys notice I have like 7 email accounts?
Yes.
Yeah, that was just 2 of them. So
that's probably part of the problem. But
so I'm gonna introduce today's topic. We're gonna each take another project to brainstorm that we're gonna potentially do in the next upcoming video weeks or whatever projects we're gonna build. And Dave, you wanted to start it off, and I've already have some ideas based on what we discussed before we started. But Dave, tell us what you think you might want to do.
So I want to make a guitar case for my custom-made guitar. And like any guitar case, it needs to be light. So I'm trying to figure out what materials to use. When I look at the guitar cases that I have, I see the edges are sewn. I want to see if I can get away from that somehow. Or maybe to like fold over the cloth or whatever I'm going to use inside and glue the pieces together. I'm not sure. I want to try to avoid sewing because I just don't have the tools for that yet. But I need to make it light and portable. I don't know if you guys have any ideas for that.
Well, I mean, all the guitar cases that I have, they kind of feel like really thick cardboard. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like a press board or something.
Yeah, a lot of the cheap ones are cardboard. They're laminated.
Well, but even some of the nicer ones. So I have a couple of cheap ones the kind of the Tyvek stuff. Not Tyvek. What's the material?
Tolex.
Tolex, yeah. Tolex. It's like Tolex over that really thin cardboard stuff. But then one of mine, the Les Paul case, which is very curvy in shape, it still feels like cardboard, but it's super rigid. And then it has material glued onto the outside of it, so like a tweed. And then the inside is more of a plush, I think it has some padding and like some velour stuff. But the actual case of it still feels like super rigid cardboard. I wonder if you could do a material like cardboard, something that you could shape and cut pretty easily and bend, and then soak it in something like a glue something to harden it into a shape, or like maybe fiberglass or something. I don't know.
There's a couple of ideas that I was thinking since we discussed this a minute ago. If you you must have a guitar shop you go and hang out at, right? Mm-hmm. We all have our own local guitar shop that we know of. If you went to a guitar shop and just asked them for a broken case, and then you could dissect it and see how it's made, you could just do that. You could also make a square case. I used to have a Gibson Explorer that I gave to Matt years ago, but it was in a big square, like a big square Gibson box. So you could make like a square box, and that makes life a little bit easier if you're using thin plywood, like a door skin. Did you guys ever buy a door skin? Everyone always asks me, where do you get really thin plywood? And some lumber yards carry what's called a door skin. And it's like 3 layers of plywood. And it's no thicker than 1/8 of an inch. And I always say, do you ever get mad at your girlfriend and punch a hole through the door and then you realize you got to return the apartment back to normal? You could either buy a whole door or you could buy a door skin, which just puts one thin layer over a door. And that's why it's called a door skin, because it's meant to fix up a crummy interior door. But it's just thin plywood.
So what about corners? How would you join corners? If I make it a square case, could I use? I've seen like the little I'm not sure, the corner protectors.
Yeah,
I could use something like that to join everything together.
You could do that, or you could if you want to get fancy with it, you could make a really thin aluminum bead to go along the corner.
Yeah, they make like a channel. It's like a corner channel.
Yeah, an angle iron that's really tiny.
Or if you were going to make it all out of wood, for instance, if you wanted to make a corner, you could make a beveled piece of wood. So you have your plywood comes into each other. So right at 45, or rather plywood coming together at a corner, and then inside fill it with a 45-degree piece of wood that's say maybe like an inch.
Yeah.
You know,
I was also thinking like the corners could just be joined with the outside and the interior cloth. So it's like it comes together, but it's only held together by the 2 pieces of material from the inside and outside. So it's like it bends until it all forms into its final shape.
Are you going to make a guitar case that actually wraps around the shape of the guitar?
I'm thinking more of like a rectangular shape.
Oh, okay. Because you could take those corners and do like a West System epoxy with the mesh, which is similar to just doing it with fiberglass. So you could build up your corners with fiberglass mesh or West System epoxy, which is the stuff I use a lot. And they sell it with a mesh, which is designed to go over the whole outside of, say, a canoe. But you could use it as your corner strength stuff. So you're kind of doing like a carbon fiber on the corners.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You know, so you paint it on the corner, put the mesh on it, then paint it again. You could even just glue it together with like wood glue or jade glue, and then reinforce it with the mesh later. So you're not trying to glue 2 loose pieces of wood together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or if you have like a tiny air nailer, like a 32 gauge air nailer, or 23 gauge? They're really tiny nails that I always use.
Little pin nail.
Pin nail. You just nail it all together with glue, let it dry for a couple hours. And then if you were going to make a top and a bottom, I would do like a typical box construction where you glue the whole entire thing together as a complete solid box and then table saw off the top.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a perfect match. And then glue a lip right inside the bottom so that when the top comes down, it has something to rest on.
I see, yeah.
And then wrap the whole thing with fabric or whatever, you know.
So treat it like I'm making just a small box, but a big box. Yeah.
Yeah. And give yourself enough room so you could build up the walls inside a little bit. You know, like when I say enough room, I mean like an inch around like the most extreme widest part of the guitar. And then you could go get, like, did you see how I did my chest set recently where I made the inside pieces sat inside foam, but then I wrapped the whole foam with like a crushed velvet. So it just mushed into the shape of it.
Yeah.
You do that with the guitar shape too.
Have you thought at all about making the shape or some condition of the case like totally new, totally out there? Or are you trying to make something kind of traditional as far as a...
Well, I kind of wanted to have like a cream colored retro vibe to it. So the case, think of like the baby blue and cream Vespas, like those color, that kind of color combination. So the trim or whatever I do around the edges might be that baby blue. And to be honest, I really have not thought about this project too much until we started hitting record.
Right. Well, because I was just thinking, you know, in that construction process, like if you're building a box, however you come up with those corners, see if maybe, and this is totally what you want the end product to be, but maybe you could see if you could take that same construction and then like change the actual shape of the box. So it's not just a big rectangle. You know, maybe you make it tapered towards the headstock. Oh, yeah. Or maybe you make it, you know, taper around the butt end of the guitar so it's not just squared off. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff you could do that you know, use basically the same construction, but they change the shape a little bit so that it's not just a big rectangle. Right. Unless you just want a big rectangle, you know, that's cool too. Now, there are some interesting cases, which might be a cool challenge, and I think I know how Jimmy would do this. I'm curious. So some of them are squared off in the long direction on the ends, but then on the short ends, but then the long ends are rounded over.
Yeah, that was just like my Gibson Explorer case. Yeah, exactly the same way.
Yeah, and maybe all Gibson cases are like that. I'm not sure, but how would you, Jimmy, go about making that shape, that rounded over? Probably an 1.5 inch round over or something.
Yeah, I would probably make that whole end out of like hardwood and build it up. You know how you can make a profile on a table saw by just continuously passing it through, and then you go in with like kind of curved hand planes and scrapers to finish off that profile. You could make that long extruded end. Say if it's like you take like a 3-inch piece of wood and then scallop out the inside, and then with a hand plane, scallop out the outside of the overside. So, I mean, it's just basically hand tool construction, but a lot of it. There's one way to do it.
I was thinking maybe you would do, because I've seen you do some bending before where you cut a whole bunch of slots in something and then you bend it over. And
you could do that with plywood too. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Something like a thin plywood, and then you could bend over the corners and then still make kind of a box construction, but the corners.
I think it could still be done with cardboard, but then you kind of
laminate it.
You laminate it, or I guess that would work. I was going to say add just epoxy to it. Once you get the shape, throw some epoxy on there so it stays that shape. But laminating would work just as well.
Another way to get that curved end, so if you're going to make the whole box look like a long extruded box so that it's kind of long and flat, and then just the extreme outside ends are curved. Another process is possibly, if you're going to make the whole thing out of 1/4-inch plywood, get PVC pipe and just chop PVC pipe up into quarters. So you have and you could crazy glue or epoxy glue it directly to the plywood. This is all, under construction that would all get laminated with the vinyl that will cover it all. So if you had that plastic on the outside, you could still drill all your hardware right into it and sand it and laminate it with whatever other materials you want to use.
It'd be pretty resilient too. It'd make a good case to have those plastic corners.
Very cool.
Interesting. And it needs to shoot smoke out of one end and lights out of the other, so you can just plop it down and you got your light show, you got your smoke show, you can just play.
That's a given.
You got to put a sign on it. A light up LED sign that flickers when you
that says
in the
David
subway.
Rocks.
Well, I think what I will do is on the outside, I'll carve maybe something out of aluminum on the CNC machine where it says Picciuto in a script font, like a
car badge.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. And then you can have an arrow that points straight into a can that's on the sidewalk. So when you open it up,
perfect.
It's like a neon light that goes.
Yeah. So if this YouTube thing doesn't work out, I can just be a street musician.
That's right. The coolest case on the street.
Well, cool. Thanks, guys.
I like that. So what I've been thinking about doing is I've been contemplating it, and I haven't drawn any sketches yet, but I've been contemplating doing a Sam Maloof style wooden chair with all sexy joinery and stuff, and then taking the whole thing and then just grinding it into a real sexy, organic, biomorphic, continuous shape. And that's a pretty involved project, I know for sure. And it's something I've been wanting to do. Every once in a while, I got to kind of remind myself that I'm not just making knives or signs or stuff like that. And so every once in a while, I kind of think in terms of a pretty semi-involved project. And also every once in a while, I know we don't want to talk about YouTube too much today, but I want to put a pretty elaborate build on my channel just to remind my fans that I still know how to do stuff instead of make fun of things and make ice picks and stuff. So that's one of the projects that's kind of I say it, although I don't mean it totally. It's just for my own, to differentiate my videos from my make videos and my core videos. I always like to call mine sort of more epic. So they're a little bit more longer and a little bit more involved. For instance, I did a video a year ago with a tool drawer that was all involved with these little small drawers, 45 drawers to be exact. So that was sort of an epic build. So I want to do a Sam Maloof style chair, and I haven't picked out a wood. I mean, the first wood that comes to mind is a walnut, but since it's such a specialized build, I might go to the hardwood place and just try and find some kind of bizarre, weird wood with some kind of bizarre, sexy grain, because it's going to be a predominant part of the design. So I haven't really thought about it, but it's going to be all bandsawed joinery, bandsawed curves joined together, and then a real whole bunch of sanding and grinding and carving and draw knives and all that other stuff. So that's what I've been thinking.
What's the predominant like joinery? I'm looking at a bunch of different samples here, and I don't know which ones are actually his and which ones are inspired by him. But I see a lot of I see some finger joint type things, like really long fingers. I see some doweling. What's the predominant joinery?
I'm thinking, whatever my style chair will be, I have some images in my mind, but again, I haven't drawn a sketch yet. But I don't want to do a rocker. I want to do a chair that sits on all fours because I see it sitting up straight. And I have a lot of animals and cats, so I hate rocking over cats' tails. They don't like that. So I would probably just do like a 4-legged chair. And I'm thinking of kind of a little bit thicker, round, something that'll hug your back. So as far as the joinery goes, I'm going to have to kind of design it into part of what you see when you sand where all these pieces of wood come together and you sand into it. What is the lines that are left behind? What is that going to look like? And so these are all things that I can design into what I want to make.
You can create that contrast of like Sam made these chairs sort of by hand, with a bandsaw, but it has that like handmade look because of all the curves. You could introduce the domino into there and create that tension of like handmade with new technology.
That's definitely true. And it give me a reason to buy the XL, which is something I've been thinking about getting.
Yeah.
The Domino XL, which is the big one.
And plus that will stir up the comments as well.
Yeah. Did you guys see when I did a video a couple months ago where I showed the dominoes were exposed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So maybe I could do that.
I thought that looked really cool. I mean, it was a nice detail.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't know if I was thinking of it as an original idea or not, but once I put it up there, a few people said they had seen it on there's a couple of Festool conversation sites, and some people said they've seen it before. But I just did it honestly out of sheer laziness, because when you trying to domino joint like 7 things in and 7 things that way and things partially built, it occurred to me to just glue it all together and just domino joint through the whole thing, and you'd be able to just get it and nail it literally.
Oh, put the domino in afterwards.
Yeah, because then everything's joined up. It's already glued together, and then the domino just gives it that much extra strength.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it out of sheer laziness, but I knew that it would have an interesting aesthetic. So, and I actually, when it very first happened, I mentioned it in that video I talked about. I had it set too deep, so I was making a set of drawers, and I poked through the side, and it occurred to me I could put these dominoes in after I glue it together, but I didn't have an opportunity to use that idea until I made that tool drawer that I was talking about. Which, by the way, my tool drawer, my Core 77 video, I'm having my friend Ryan do a fully exploded SketchUp plan for it. So what I wanted to ask you guys, and you could answer to the whole audience, can I put a SketchUp file for download on my website, and can people download it and then go into the SketchUp and rearrange it?
You can. You might want to zip it up into a zip file first.
Right.
Because some browsers might reject it because it's an unknown file.
Right.
And then you come in, as a former web developer, you have to be prepared for people who will download the file and say they can't open it.
Yep.
Right. All right. Well,
and they'll go it won't open in my web browser. Why not? Well, because you need SketchUp. It's a SketchUp file.
Right. Well, I'll offer that in PDFs too, stills of it.
Yeah.
But we could talk about that after. But yeah, so go ahead.
I'm looking at the wood types. I Googled Sam Maloof just to see what all was around. And it looks like most of the chairs are out of a single wood type. And you were talking about going to find, a really interesting grain. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about mixing really contrasting woods, or maybe doing some sort of crazy lamination that you then,
no, I haven't. That's actually something to think about. I do want to do a curved back. So if I could laminate curved parts too, not necessarily what do they call those vintage chairs? Those bow back chairs, not like that, but I want to maybe do what my inspiration as far as the shape goes. And I haven't been able to articulate it, but it just kind of came to me is, you ever see when you sit in an old courthouse, those old chairs that kind of wrap your back a little bit. Old courthouse chair, like the ones that are at the lawyering tables. That kind of style, that kind of 1940s office furniture. It's kind of what I'm picturing, but with a sexy organic flair to it.
I don't know if you guys can see this. This is my acoustic guitar, and the neck is made up of 50 pieces of laminate. You see that?
Oh yeah, I can see it. It looks like grain.
Yeah, and then on the sides, because the head tapers, you see kind of like the exposed edges of it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's a really cool effect. And because of all the laminations, that'll last forever. It's not gonna move at all.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. And then you end up
So-
with like a nice grain pattern, like a natural grain pattern cut into the curves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be interesting, like these pieces that you're going to end up shaping out, if you start with some, maybe not like tons of lamination like that, where you have a bunch of different stripes, but maybe you take two contrasting pieces of wood, laminate them into a single beam, and then you shape out of that. So as the shape changes, you know, you're exposing different amounts of light or dark wood or something like that.
Look like zebra.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Or I could take like old newspapers and laminate them together and build the whole Sam Maloof style chair out of like old newspapers and joinery.
I've seen sculptures done like that.
Yeah, it'd be like a lot of resin, but might be fun.
That's crazy.
Huh. Now I'm thinking. Now you're
like
thinking.
this. Yeah. Now you're cooking with gas.
That's a good idea. Like if I was able to find, be interesting too. Oh, you know what I just got this week, and I talked about it on my Snapchat. I got piano legs for an old piano. 4. Typically pianos have 3 legs. This was 4 matching legs. It must have been some kind of weird like harpsichord or something. I got it at the antique store. 4 beautiful Victorian legs. They're probably 100 years old. And I'm going to use those as bed legs. I might end up getting I'm talking to one of these mattress companies to maybe do a video. But either way, whether I get their endorsement or not, I'm going to definitely make a bed video, and I'm going to incorporate these crazy 4 antique legs. It's going to be interesting. So that gets back to kind of the curviness. It's kind of another inspiration subconsciously that I wasn't aware of till just now. These legs are really cool. They look like big Victorian lion legs that have been like squished into the ground, and then like the bottom exploded and curled back up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're really cool. I don't even have a picture of them to show you. I did a Snapchat of it, and that was it. I never took a still.
Did you buy them looking for bed legs, or did you come up with the bed idea after seeing the legs?
I saw the legs and then said, what can I make with these? And I'm like, ooh, they're only like 17 inches tall, so I could make a bed with them. It would make for a little bit of a weird high bed, but I'd be able to get the dog out from underneath it easier. Because right now, one of my Yorkies runs underneath stuff, and I can't get her. She runs under like the dresser, which is like 4 inches from the bottom of the ground. But there's this crazy place I call it's near my house in Coxsackie, upstate. Coxsackie, that's the name of a town. I'm not saying a dirty word. Coxsackie Antique Center. And so I go to there from time to time, and there's probably 70 booths of all different dealers. So each one of the dealers has their own personal preference of stuff. And me and Taylor go there all the time to buy things and get ideas. So we went this afternoon, Sunday afternoon, just to kill time and collect ideas. And we both ended up spending hundreds of dollars on things to potentially make furniture with. So it was fun.
Always fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I haven't been to a place like that in a long time.
You know what
I haven't
inspired
really been
me?
to a good flea market.
Dave, I go there in the past, but when you recently went to the flea market and you went some antiquing, it reminded me to go up to Coxsackie Antique Center this weekend.
I think my favorite thing about going into these old antique stores is just looking at things and remembering things from my childhood. Right. And then I go in there without knowing what I'm going to get, but just letting the place inspire me, just like your bed legs.
Yeah.
You buy them and figure out what to do with it.
On that same day, I went into an antique store, a different one, a little small one, and they had the G.I. Joe. Now, you guys are probably too young. Do you remember the G.I. Joe to compete with the $6 Million Man came out with like a bionic arm and a bionic leg?
No.
Did you guys know that?
So this is the big 12-inch G.I. Joe?
Yeah, and he had the eye from so they stole a couple things from the Kung Fu grip G.I. Joe, which is even earlier. He had the Kung Fu grip hand, and he had the eye, which you'd kind of, if it was a sunny day, you could put the finger over the top of his head and his eye would blink. He had like a little periscope light tube in his eye, so you could like send a signal 10 feet away to the other G.I. Joe. So you tap on the top of his head and the light in his eye would go on and off. and he had a bionic arm that when you turn this thing on his forearm, his hand would spin. And then in his leg, his arm was clear plastic with all kinds of metal in it, and his leg was clear plastic with all kinds of metal in it. And I think that was the G.I. Joe to compete with the $6 Million Man in like 1977, 78. And so Taylor said, oh, you had one of those when you were a kid? I said, this is exactly the same one I had. And then there was a guy next to me who looked like he was 80 years old. He goes, I had that when I was a kid too. And I just immediately said, either you look really old or you don't know what you're talking about. So I looked at Taylor when we left. I'm like, do I look as old as that guy? He had the same thing I had at the same age, supposedly.
That's funny. I just remembered my Skeletor. Where you punch it in the chest and the thing flipped and then his chest was dented.
Yeah.
See what I had. I'm 10 years older than you guys almost. I had a Pulsar. Do you guys remember Pulsar?
I don't think so.
Name sounds familiar.
Pulsar was a character of a toy that was just a toy. It was never a TV show or anything. And you push on Pulsar's chest and blood would flow through his heart. The whole front of his chest was all clear plastic. And he's like a real handsome action figure doll, but when you tore open his like sports coat, his whole chest was made in clear plastic with wires running through it or tubes. And you pushed on his chest and blood would flow through the tubes.
Oh, wow.
It's called Pulsar. It was like an ancillary character, I think, to G.I. Joe.
Is that what inspired your gushy balls? Or
probably, in a roundabout way. It's one of those things, in my TEDx talk that I did, I talk about all these different things leading to like a bottom line ultimately. And I never thought about it till now, but it certainly could have been one of those seeds planted. There was a couple of other more conscious things that led to it, but that certainly was something from my childhood. So bottom line is it's good to walk through the antique shop. And I wasn't thinking of the Sam Maloof project when I was walking through the antique shop, but now in hindsight, these piano legs are definitely part of that inspiration now that I'm conscious of it. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
sounds like I need to go find a good antique mall to go through.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, we always stop at them no matter what. And it's not necessarily just to always buy stuff. It's just to look for. It's for that exact same reason, Dave, that you were talking about. Like, oh, remember this? Oh my God, this meant so much to me at a point in time. And then your blood starts flowing, and you start thinking, oh, what was cool about this? And then you incorporate that into some future design somehow, some way. So it's really just to like pat the bushes in my brain most often, or go shopping with your eyes is what my friend used to always say. Instead of go shopping with your wallet, go shopping with your eyes.
I like that.
Yeah. So I like the idea. Coming out of this brainstorm, I like the idea of laminating stuff together, whether it's different color plies or just different objects. But that's definitely going to be part of this design. So that was good.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, I've got a couple that are not, I don't know that they're like really things I'm going to do, but they're on my list of things that I haven't really thought through yet. So, actually, we got plenty of time. All right, so one is about me, is an idea that I want to do, but the other two I think could be good for all three of us, and I think it's something we all should talk about for our own sake. So, for me, and this is more of just like a thing that I haven't really thought through the process yet, I was watching, imagine this, Star Wars a while back, and in the first one, there's a scene near the beginning where they're in this kind of meeting room in the Death Star, and Darth Vader walks in and all the guys are sitting around the table, this big, huge table in this big, huge room, and the chairs that they're sitting in are these really awesome bent wood, but they're all black, so you don't see any wood grain or anything, but they're bent wood chairs, and so the back curves down where you sit, but then it curves up into a single piece into kind of a straight back. And then the two corners of that top of the back go to a point. And then when they come down towards the center of the chair, there's a cutout. So it's just a very interesting, kind of sharp, evil looking chair design.
Is the cutout of a heart?
Yeah, it's a big thumbs up.
Thumbs down for the...
Go Empire! But when I saw that, I was like, oh man, that would be cool. One, because it would be like kind of a prop replica of something that probably nobody else has ever made from a movie, which is something I've been looking for. But also just because it's like a bent wood chair with a steel, like a chrome base. And I have been through the process of having something chromed, but not for the sake of a project. It was like guitar parts. So that would be kind of cool to, make the metal base, to have it chromed, but then to do this bent wood chair back. But the thing I don't know, and I've never really researched there, is like, how do you build the form and handle the drying process or the vacuum process or whatever to make a really big, front to back, this thing is probably, of the single piece of wood, it's probably 4.5, 5 feet long. And then 24 inches wide or something to be cut down to shape. So how do you form something of that size?
I've seen a lot of, like, if you watch some Ray and Charles Eames documentaries or go through photos, they kind of started the bent lamination revolution. And you could see like they cut out these forms and there's holes in them, and then there's a bunch of like hand turn clamps like all around. It's really hard to explain, but maybe I can find a picture and show you. They had the same problem, and they had to figure out how to create these big laminations.
You, Bob, you did the skateboard recently, like about 6 months ago, you made the skateboard. So just think in terms of that, but obviously bigger. Some of these presses, I happen to see a book on bent lamination furniture recently, and there's huge presses. I mean, some of this tooling is really involved. So maybe you kind of scale it down a little bit and think in terms of, instead of like a concave bend, just a straight bend. If you did a concave bend, that's where you would need a lot of pressure to kind of conform all those laminates. And then when you laminate stuff too, you also laminate a lot more than you need, because then you trim it back. Right. Because your edges are always going to, you probably did that with the skateboard too.
Yeah.
Your edges always get a little wonky. But think in terms of just bending it. I'm showing you on camera a little pile of my note cards. If you bent it like that, just one bend, that's a lot easier than trying to make, a bend that has concave structure to it. So I maybe if you were going to do it, the largest part of this build would be building the form. And you could, if you've ever seen how a canoe is built, like the canoe that Nick made and the video that I made, you build a big skeleton, and you form the strips on that skeleton. So if you made a skeleton of the negative shape of the chair, either the outside or the inside negative shape, you could laminate into that. But you also have to figure out a whole system of clamping things into place and pushing it. And instead of trying to laminate, say, 5 or 7 plies at one time, on a smaller scale, it might be easy to laminate 1 at a time, 2 at a time, in consecutive drying times. So you have 1 drying time, 2 drying times, 3 drying times. Just a thought. It might also help to make a small scale version of it. That might solve a lot of problems instead of jumping right into a big one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the clamping, because with the skateboard I did a vacuum press, and that's strong enough to a point, but then once you get, to big enough bends or a big enough form, I can't do that anymore. Actually,
the video suggestion I make this week is a fan of mine from Russia who's got a great channel, and his last video, he uses a big giant vacuum bag. He's got like a table-sized vacuum thing. It's like this guy's got incredible amounts of tools, and he writes me emails and says that I inspired him. He's got more tools than I will probably ever have, and he's got more room than I will ever have. And I don't know what he did before he started watching my YouTube videos, because he certainly knows what he's doing now. I mean, he kind of claims that he got started because of me. But I watched one of his videos today, and it was this huge vacuum thing he utilizes in the video. It's incredible. It's like a big giant rubber table that like clamps things down with a vacuum table. So that's the kind of thing you could use. And you would lay like the seat, the part that your butt would be on, face down on the table. So you'd end up with like a vacuum table like this kind of thing. Yeah. So this negative space here from the back of the bend to the table that you might have your form on is only about 17, 18 inches. And then your seat and your back would taper down to the table that has the vacuum bag over it.
Yeah, I think without the bag, though, because I don't think it's realistic to, invest in all that stuff to do one thing.
But you could probably do it in a bag, a big one.
If you had a big enough bag, yeah.
Which is
But I'm wondering if, what the clamping mechanism would be to be able to clamp. Obviously, you could clamp along the edge of things pretty easily, but once you get into a 24 or 30 inch wide thing that you're trying to form, like how do you clamp the inside panels of that really consistently all the way down? I don't know.
You could build this is obviously there's a lot of work involved, but you could build a big like 2x4, 4x4 box and then bang wedges. You know what I'm saying? If your form is inside that box, you could bang wedges against the frame so that things start getting pushed together. And instead of you're thinking in terms of putting like a big C clamp over everything.
Yeah.
Build a big like a halo around the whole thing, and then hammer wedges into the halo to compress where you want to compress. So
that's cool.
You could avoid lamination completely and kind of build it kind of like how a vase turner makes segments, where they just kind of build out the part that's going to be carved and then take an angle grinder with like an Arbortech blade and carve away the shape too.
That's a really good idea too.
Oh yeah.
But if you take a like plywood's like profile of the chair and glue them together, one next to another. And if that shape consecutively changes slowly, you can get the concave and convex shape.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that would be.
And then you have the lines of the
crazy.
plywood going straight up and down.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody sent me a really cool tweet. It was a Vimeo video, and I actually watched it, even though it was on Vimeo, of this cabinet that, like, you pull one piece of it, the whole thing goes, and it pinches
I've seen
open,
that.
and then you close it, and it goes, and closes. It's like a big snake-like square that turns into this big sexy curve. Now imagine if those shapes were glued together in the shape you wanted, your chair.
Right. Huh.
So, a lot to think about.
Yeah. I'll have to consider that some more. Okay, well, real quick, let's run through the other. Well, let's just do one of them. So, and this is, I think, for us and for maybe a lot of other people who make videos. How can we use a CNC in a way that's interesting in a video?
Can make a sign. Oh, never
That's a
mind.
horrible idea. Nobody would watch
I thought
that
the mic
video.
was off. I'm sorry.
I don't try to do full CNC videos where maybe I'll incorporate a piece that's CNC'd into a larger project. And to me, that's more interesting than watching a bit just spin around for 20 minutes.
I have a big CNC project coming up right now. I have a really big CNC project. I have some interesting solves. I mean, I could talk a little bit about it, but Bob, you go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I that's the way I approach it too. But it's one of those tools that, like, I like using it when I use it, but every time I use it, I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of wrestling with how I want to use that and keep it in my workflow, or not keep it in my workflow, or whatever.
Well, that's what Dave, you touched on a little bit, where it's like you want to use it, but you want it to be a piece of something that's more interesting on the whole. And actually, the sign video that I made recently for Greenlight, I actually started bandsawing all those letters out off camera, well, rather on camera. The video started out with me bandsawing the letters, and then when the letters got smaller and smaller, it became more difficult for me to cut. And I'm like, what am I doing? Let me just go to the CNC. I'm trying to be a hero here on the bandsaw. And when I went to the CNC, I just did the most interesting collection of images that I could try and do. I kept it quick and sweet, and I tried to also show a couple of real key tips that somebody who would CNC would look at that and go, oh, I would never thought to do that. And so I actually got an interesting video at it. I got perfect letter forms, which prior to that, I was bandsawing them out of plexiglass. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is a clean, perfect logo. It deserves a clean, perfect cutout. And so that's why I literally scrapped, about an hour's worth of video and all the letters that I hand cut. Jumped to the CNC within an hour. I had all my letters done. Perfect shape. A really good start to a sign.
I like the idea of it being part of the story. So you have a problem, and this solves the problem, which is part of the bigger story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I'm going to be making for Core 77, I have it all designed. I haven't started shooting yet. I'm making panels for my friend. She wants to separate a room in her apartment. So I'm going to make 30 by 70 inch panels, 4 of them on the CNC machine that's only 18 by 24. I'm going to have to tile the concept together. And the concept she wanted CNC'd into it works with the idea of tiling these images together. It's like a repetitive pattern of a bunch of butterflies laying down. So I could take one piece of that wallpapered image and flip-flop it in every direction, and the design just keeps growing. So I'm going to make 24 CNC panels and glue them all together into 4 bigger panels. So each one's going to have 6 in it. So, and I've already designed, I'm sure it's going to work, but I've designed a couple of things in theory to make that workflow go quicker. So I'm not literally CNCing 24 panels. I'm going to stack them up together and cut them a few at a time. So that'll make using a CNC semi-interesting, I think.
There's also, I've seen a lot of comments of people who don't own a CNC saying, oh, well, anybody can just draw something up on a computer and have a machine cut it out. And those people don't understand, or they might not realize that there's a lot more to it. So you could educate a little bit more on bit selection. Bit selection is pretty confusing because there's up spiral, down spiral, there's fluted and whatever. You could talk about the types of materials that are involved and what it takes to actually design something to get it to the CNC. So it's just to kind of show that it's a little bit more than a computer doing all the work. And
you know
what
what I want to do to make a CNC video interesting is get somebody's grandmother in and actually see if she can do it. Because I get a lot of comments, my grandmother could do that, do something interesting. And get someone's real grandmother in there and watch her break a bit, get frustrated, throw the sign across the room, and then leave and go, your grandmother can't do this. And that'll be the end of my CNC video.
That's a great title for the video, too. Your grandmother can't do this.
Now, I argued with a guy in the comments. He said, my grandmother could do this. I said, no, she can't, because she does not have the experience to be able to combat the various nuances that are confronted with holding the material in place, dealing with which speeds and feeds to choose, which bits to use, how deep, a million parameters to have some understanding of. Mm-hmm. And every time you do a CNC cutout, you learn more about what you didn't know last time.
Yeah, for sure.
So
that's one of those things, like I don't want to push it aside because it seems too easy from the outside. I mean, I totally agree with what you guys are saying. It's like one of those things I want to use when it's useful and when it makes sense to use, but I also want to figure out a way to make it interesting to watch. And you know what I mean? It's just like,
well, Bob, I'll throw something at you. To throw like a curveball in the CNC. Imagine if you had a CNC something and then flip it over and CNC it again. What kind of interesting patterns could you get if you did that? So there you go. That's making CNC interesting.
I saw, and that just reminded me, and I don't remember who did it, but they made, what is it called where you set out like a hot plate on, like a trivet?
Yep.
Is that what it is? So they CNC'd like 4 lines going this way halfway through the wood, flipped it over, and 4 lines going the other way, and it made this really awesome, cool looking pattern.
Right. Now imagine if you seed like hundreds of loops, hundreds of rings, flipped it over, and then did 100 more rings that overlap those rings. So now you'd have like all these different rings connected together. You'd have like a mat or whatever it might end up being.
A spirograph type thing.
Yeah.
Something that I have in my notes, and I don't know if I should tell anybody this because I don't want somebody to beat me to this, but I have the iPad Pro and I have the Apple Pencil. I've been wanting to put the pencil into the CNC and have it draw on the iPad Pro, and then whatever I design is then digitally made by a CNC machine.
No, that's cool.
Crazy.
I see a broken iPad in your future.
Believe me, the whole thing comes to life and takes over your shop.
Believe me, there will be many, many tests before I put that piece of glass underneath there.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap that up. What have you guys been watching?
So there is this channel called Prince E. It's Prince EA. I think you pronounce it E. I'm not sure. But this guy just in front of a camera, and he's kind of like a poet and has nothing but positive messages, and it's just really inspiring short little videos to watch. Set to awesome music. I just love watching it.
Is he the guy that did a video about trolls a couple years ago?
Yeah, the haters.
Yeah. He was good.
It just makes you feel good when you watch him.
Yeah. Oh, I have a fan in Russia who's actually, I talked about him. He's been inspired by me, but he's incredibly talented and he's incredibly capable, and his shop is insane. And I have no idea how to say any of the things that are written because it's all written in Russian. But WL86 is his website, and we'll put a link in the notes for his YouTube channel. It's all in Russian, and he talks in Russian, but a lot of his videos are more like mine where he doesn't speak. But you can see what's going on. There's lots of cool projects going on, a lot of experimentation. And he's a really talented craftsman. So, and he texted me. We emailed this week, and he emailed me his name, but I'm not even about to try and pronounce what it says. So, take a look and tell him if you do subscribe. Tell him you came from me. He deserves it. He's a really good guy and craftsman.
Cool. Nice. So I got 2. Well, one is just kind of a thank you, and you've talked about welding tips and tricks.
Yep.
Several times. And is one of those things where, like, yeah, I should get around to watching some of his videos. Jody, right? That's his name, Jody? I feel like I should get around to watching that. And I've been subscribed for a long time, but it's one of those things I just never made time to do. Well, finally, the other night, while I was here by myself, I was like, I'm going to sit down and watch a 20-minute welding video. And just do it. And I did, and it was so helpful. And man, I should have done it a long time ago.
Yeah. He's just such a nice guy. He's like a great human being. I mean, you could email him and he answers questions, and he's just such a nice guy.
He seems just very matter of fact about just this is how things work, and this is how you should do it, and this is how you shouldn't do it.
And he's a certified welding
teacher.
teacher. I mean, that's what he does. He's a teacher for an airline. I don't know if he still is, but he would teach people how to weld that made airplanes. So nice. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. So
that's just kind of a thank you to him and for you for recommending it.
Oh, cool.
But the real one is Smarter Every Day. We've talked about Smarter Every Day before, right?
Yep.
His newest video is called Mind-Blowing Magic Magnets. Have you not seen this video? Mm-hmm. It's crazy to me. It blows my mind. Well, it's mind-blowing. I guess that makes sense. It's about this new kind of magnet that this company is made, or I don't know, where they can design the polarity of a magnet. So it's not just like the top is north and the bottom is south. Like they can actually put both of those poles on the same face, and they can make designs with opposite polarity right next to each other. Which doesn't sound like it would, okay, cool. What is that? But they show you examples of how it can be used to make mechanisms that otherwise just aren't really possible. It's amazing. And it just seems like one of those things that can really change a lot of stuff that we use on a regular basis. When it gets commercialized and stuff. But
I'm watching them now.
Be sure to go check that out. It's pretty awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah, I guess that's probably it for this week. I want to say thanks to our Patreon supporters real quick. Luis Gonzalez, John Cornwell, Dominic DeFino, Elijah Taylor, and Make Build Modify. That's what his name is. I don't know what his actual name is, but we'll find out. So thanks to them and everybody else from Patreon for helping us out. Oh, and Jeremy White. Sorry, missed Jeremy White. And if you guys want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/makingit and help us out. Or just share the show, leave us comments, send us emails, that stuff.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And if you have things you want to hear us talk about, tweet those at us. That's the best way to do it.
Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. We like to talk. So. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. That's it for this week, I guess.
You know what I was thinking?
What were you thinking?
I was thinking we should make a shirt. You know what does it say on the shirt?
What?
I love you.